Welcome back everyone. Believe it or not, I didn't even make a video about the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 in 2021, which is so crazy to me because I've already done comparisons of this phone already this year. But what I can tell you is about this specific device is that it's a killer phone still in so many different ways. The hardware is still so beautiful, but this phone is succumbed to one very sad thing, which I'll get into in like 2 seconds. But first of all, if you want to pick up this phone or other phones that I would recommend this year, links will be down in the description. You can get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the front of the Samsung Galaxy Note 9, it does have that 6.4 inch Super AMOLED display. It's a 1440p panel, and as I always have stated before, this panel is one of the best panels still. It's a beautiful panel. Anything you're going to do with it, it's going to be perfectly fine. Yeah, there may be some shortcomings here and there, but for the most part, it's a really good panel. You know, very little bezel on the top and bottom for the most part. It's a little bit, but definitely not that bad. And the curved sides to it definitely gives so much of an appeal to this device that just gets a thumbs up for me in my books times 10. Now on the bottom, USB Type-C port with the headphone jack and the S Pen. Now some of you may not know this, I'm sure a lot of you do by now. The S Pen is pretty much like a stylus with way more capability. And again, this is just another cool feature of the Samsung Galaxy Note lineup. And like I said before, if I were to use a Samsung or any device for that matter that's, an Android, I would be pretty much using a specific, Galaxy Note of some sort because of that S Pen. It's seriously such a cool feature. I'm surprised more phones don't use it. Now we have the S21 Ultra that has that capability, but this is seriously some really cool stuff. And on the back, a glass back with a fingerprint sensor on the back, which is pretty cool and kind of interesting for the fingerprint sensor. It's kind of outdated now, but it's okay. And you have that dual camera setup. Now you have a micro SD card slot on this device as well, which is great. You have a wireless charging on this phone, which is great. You have IP certification on this phone as well. And as stated before, this is some high quality stuff. These things in and of itself are just huge reasons why I would recommend picking up this phone in this day and age. Again, it's definitely not like the best phone ever made right now, and it's a little bit dated, but I would definitely say the body of this phone is not one thing to look over. It is seriously an impressive phone still in 2021, just based on the body in and of itself. Now moving on to the camera, which I kind of hit on, it does have that dual camera setup, a 12 megapixel wide angle lens, then a 12 megapixel telephoto lens. Now, I think the back camera is really decent for the most part. I mean, I really wish it did have an ultra-wide sensor, but I really think, the dual camera setup that we have are still pretty good. If you look at the iPhone 8 Plus, even the 7 Plus, the telephoto lens and wide angle lens, I'm glad they have the additional sensor, but it doesn't really hurt it. Like, it only helps it, so I'm really glad about that. But I really do think that the ultra-wide sensors that we're getting nowadays, especially that triple camera setup, are some of those huge improvements that we've been seeing on the more recent versions of devices. So the additional camera lenses are the things that are going to help this device out for the most part. Now, you can do 4K at 60, which is great. The quality of these photos and the quality of these videos are going to be impressive. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not, but for the most part, it's going to be okay. And I think that's one thing about this device that's really just killer. When you get a phone like this, you're not expecting to have such a, outdated device in terms of the camera. The features are still there. The update with One UI 2.5 was really beneficial for the camera because we got Video Pro mode, which is really cool. And I think for the most part, no matter what you're going to do with this camera, you're probably going to be okay. But you may actually see that one of the bigger differences with this device is actually the front camera. So it has an 8 megapixel wide angle lens on the front and a 2 megapixel hybrid scanner, which again is kind of funny. You can do 1440p videos on this thing, which is great. But other than that, I really wish this thing had a better front facing camera. I think the fact that, it didn't really have the best camera of that time is kind of strange. I think at that time it was good, 2018, it's okay. But if it had 4K on the front, I think that would have been a much better machine for the most part. So I think the camera overall is probably a thumbs up. Again, not perfect, but I think it gets the job done for the most part. So in terms of the Samsung Galaxy Note 9's camera in 2021, that pretty much covers it up. Now moving on to I think the worst aspect of this phone and simultaneously a better aspect of this phone is the software. So this is how I look at it, okay? With Samsung, one of their biggest problems is software, not only software updates, but also the software itself. One UI is still kind of bloated. It doesn't have, I think One UI 3 has been a little bit of improvement, but it's also kind of a downgrade in some ways. Now, there's no stock Android for Samsung right now unless you do the Galaxy Nexus, and you can't customize custom ROM in this device, so that's not really a capability for at least the model that I have, and at least for the models that are publicly available. And I think the bigger problem of this is that the hardware is still great. Like I mentioned in this video, the screen's beautiful, the hardware is great, the S Pen, all this stuff, but the software is already outdated. It's gonna get security updates for a little bit, but Samsung basically extended the next, phones after this, the Note 10 and the S10. They extended the 2019 phones with an extra year. This device did not get that. So this one is already pretty outdated when it comes down to it. And that's something that's kind of sad, when you have a device like this, you don't want it to be outdated. And that's the huge problem. This is the number one issue why I would not recommend picking up a Galaxy Note 9 in 2021. This is the biggest problem with the Note 9. This phone could have the best performance, this phone could have the best camera and all this stuff, but if it's outdated on software, you're not only being led to more security risks, but you're also missing out on a lot of new features that, Google is working hard to pretty much, extend to their devices. And Android, 12 actually is looking to be a pretty big upgrade, from what I've seen visually. The last couple of updates have been pretty much the same in terms of visual looking, but in terms of the Android 12 update, it's supposed to be a pretty big thing, as you probably saw my other video that I just made. So that, again, in and of itself is another big reason why the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 just isn't really maybe that device as it used to be, is because of the software. But simultaneously, one of the best things about this device is the battery. This thing has a 4,000 mAh battery inside of it, and that is a massive size battery to have on this type of device. This thing is going to last you for a very long time in terms of this, battery life itself, and really no matter what you do with it, you're going to get a really solid type of battery performance from this thing. And as stated before, that's something that you should always look at when you get a device like this. When you, receive a phone like this and you have this type of battery life, you're expected to have, a certain level of just battery life from it. And again, that is a huge asset for this device. So in terms of the battery life, it gets a thumbs up for me in my books, but the software gets a thumbs down for me in my books. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. Now ending it off with the performance, this device does have that Qualcomm Snapdragon 845 chipset inside of it, an Adreno 630 GPU, and it's 6 gigs of RAM on that base model, and then 8 gigs of RAM on that top tier model. And what I can tell you is about this phone's performance is that it's still pretty good. I think it's a little glitchy here and there, and that's probably the bigger problem of it. It's definitely not the smoothest experience, but it's really not that bad. And I'm so glad One UI 2 brought that gesture-based design, because that actually helped out the overall, just the smoothability of this device. So again, when you pick up a phone like this, you're going to get some really good type of performance from this thing. And believe it or not, that is something that a lot of people are probably going to be looking at. And again, it's sad that this phone's not getting any more support, because the performance, the hardware inside of this is great. The 6 gigs of RAM is one of those things that still is pretty decent. But if you get that top tier 8 gig of RAM model with 512 gigs of storage, which is crazy, you're going to be getting some really good performance from this thing. And that 8 gigs of RAM is pretty much what we have on the Samsung Galaxy S21 right now as well. So again, that's another pretty big asset for it and another W. So that pretty much covers it up in the performance. I would definitely say the Galaxy Note 9 is a really fast phone still in 2021 for the most part, for the price tag as well as the age that it came out. So in terms of that pretty much covers it up. Now to kind of sum up the video and to answer the question, is the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 still worth it in 2021? Well, this is what I'll tell you. I think the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 in a pure hardware standpoint is still completely worth it for the most part. This device is a beautiful phone. It has so much capability, and it's just one of those devices that I would probably recommend people to still buy if it wasn't for the software. If this thing was still getting security, if this thing was still getting full software support, that would be awesome. It's still getting security updates, which is awesome too, but I don't know. There's just something about getting hyped over the next version of Android and being happy that your phone is also going to be getting it. When you get a device like this, you're already getting an outdated device. And it's so funny because typically with Apple, it's like the opposite. You're getting a super long-lasting device, but the hardware is probably not going to be that great by the time the software is done. With these devices, it's the opposite. The hardware is still going to be super amazing, but unfortunately, it's just not going to be getting those software updates, making it kind of outdated. So take it as you will, but that's pretty much how I see it in this case. So that pretty much covers it up. Like I said, if you want to pick up the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 or any other phones that I would recommend this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. If you guys have any other questions, let me know in the comment section as well. Hit the like button, that means so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly, everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.